Yeah, I think, in the search world, we talk about this as a team. You could talk to anyone on my team and they would say the same, that our clients really are not looking for us to go out there and find them a candidate, any candidate. I mean, they truly are looking for us to find them the right match. And so, as we think about the world of search, oftentimes it could be any position, whether it's a CEO, a CFO, the position descriptions always look the same. And I think when it really comes down to it, it's always about the culture of the brand. And so one CFO, a very successful CFO doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a successful CFO in another company. So, where our team takes the most amount of time is really on the front end, trying to understand the existing players, kind of where they're at in their growth phase. And we really go out and try to make the right match, so we always say what we do is matchmaking, and we're looking for the right long-term fit. I think our clients really appreciate that from us. So we've made a lot of matches all across the country, hundreds and hundreds of matches over the last 10 years.
Well, that's very exciting. And so 10 years, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Can you tell me a little bit about what you think is up next for the next 10 years?
Yeah, so we're seeing it a lot. I mean, it's almost like we're in the center of information. I always say that, just kind of seeing where brands are headed, whether it's mergers and acquisitions. But the one area that we're seeing change very, very quickly is around kind of this digital side of the business. And it's merging with marketing, which is merging with ops. And so we're definitely seeing a collision in a good way of, having to be able to think out of the box, being open to new ideas, new concepts. And, I think the pandemic forced us all to say how we're doing business today, obviously, is not sustainable. None of us thought the pandemic would last as long as it did. So I remember thinking in March of 2020, we should be out of this by June, So when we were still sitting here and it's like November, December, and watching still, the mandate closures and things of that nature. I've never seen a group of more resilient leaders kind of stepping forward and thinking outside the box and doing whatever was necessary. So I have such a passion for the industry, if you can't tell. But, we kind of look at ourselves as we're helping build world-class teams for a lot of these brands. And, it looks different. I mean, from an innovation standpoint, marketing, I mean, like what used to work isn't necessarily the same, toolbox, I guess you could say, that of what they need moving forward.
Yeah. And so what is it like, not only are these new digital roles coming up, but there's also all of these new, remote opportunities and work from home and all of that. And how does that play into how you figure out a team? I mean, it's different when they're not working all together to find a mesh that works properly, to match make, as you say, properly.
Yeah, I mean, I think, it's actually forced everyone to look at, does everybody need to be together? Look, we've actually seen all across the board, there are some businesses where people are not back. I mean, they're actually not back in offices. And so it's actually really forcing, we've had a lot of conversations with our clients of what roles, so does this role have to be sitting in the office, because it does limit the pool of candidates that would actually be available for the position, or do you want us to look across the country and provide you the best candidate and best fit for the role? So I will tell you that we've definitely seen a lot more brands being more open, because in the last 18 to 20 months, everybody has been remote. However, I think if you talk to most of the leaders, most of the CEOs, they would still they're like, you lose that cultural element. It's not the same when you can actually walk into someone's office and have a conversation that, if the person's 4 states away, there's just a different complexity to that, but they've definitely been more open to it. We've seen that.
Let's focus a little bit more on you. You are a very interesting person, and you were named one of LinkedIn's top voices for 2020, which is exciting. Congratulations. What is it like to be, one of these top people on this platform that is everything now? I mean, during the pandemic, LinkedIn has become even more important than it was before.
Gosh, I don't even know that I'm deserving of that, to be honest. I mean, Holly, I'm saying that because in 2020 was a really difficult year, even for our business. Unfortunately, I actually had to lay off my entire team in March, not knowing if there was going to be a business or not. I just remember thinking, gosh, these people are my family, and I need to make sure that they can collect unemployment, that they can actually have access to these benefits, because, the reality is I'm not sure when restaurants are going to be coming back, much less search. And so I think I took the opportunity. I remember sitting there thinking, like, what can I do to try to help the industry? And I just remember thinking about a lot of the small independents that didn't have the access to information as readily as some of the bigger companies that had resources. And so I thought, and by the way, the individual, small businesses are not our clients. But I just remember thinking, like, I'm a small business owner, and a lot of people didn't realize that, because during the pandemic, I received hundreds of calls, and they're like, what's going to happen? What's next? And I remember thinking, it's actually just me, And so they didn't think, they were like, what? Oh, I didn't realize, like, it impacted your business as well. And so I think I took the opportunity to use the platform to bring a lot of people together that were, experts and knowledge in their space, to allow them to share information. And I remember thinking, if the power of social is as strong as I believe it is, then, we actually started, and well, I should say, like, I started by buying some gift cards in November of last year, asking people to step up to the table and purchase gift cards to help save, like, local businesses. And so I tagged a few people who tagged a few people, and then thousands of people on LinkedIn actually accepted the challenge to purchase gift cards for the holiday season. And I remember that, I think it was Cisco, that their president, they purchased it for every one of their employees, and millions of dollars were spent helping out, local businesses. So I feel very honored. And so, but, I really do. Thank you.
Well, and so we talk about using LinkedIn as a platform. What is it important for small businesses and large businesses to be using LinkedIn? Is that a good way to find people for jobs? I mean, how important is LinkedIn? You're very big on it. And so obviously you think it's important, but how big is it for businesses?
Yeah, I really think it is. And for smaller businesses, you don't find them on there. You find them on Instagram, you find them on Facebook, and maybe Twitter. But I would tell you, like, on LinkedIn, they're so, if used properly. And part of me says, gosh, there's such an education around how LinkedIn could be used. Unfortunately, I've talked with a lot of businesses, and they're like, Helen, it's now nothing but salespeople trying to sell me things, and I really will tell you that it's, if used right, you get a chance to showcase your business. I mean, a lot of our clients are doing a terrific job in kind of showing their grand openings, showing kind of their team culture, and, like, what their brand is all about. So I think if used properly, it is very important for both big and small businesses, because you're able to, it's a very, very powerful tool. And for people, not only to, if they're looking for a job, or if small businesses are actually looking for employees. I can tell you, like, my daughter, even in high school last year, they had a class, talking about LinkedIn and how they could get their profiles up. And I was thinking, that's actually extremely powerful for them to start establishing their like, professional identity. And it's very different than Instagram and Facebook. So, I'm a huge proponent of it.
And so, you talk about, you think about LinkedIn as a brand, as part of your brand identity. You start it when you're 18. It's something professional, but it's part of a larger brand identity that you have that includes Instagram, that includes Facebook, that includes all of these things. So, what are your kind of thoughts on social media in terms of a brand presence? It's bigger than just LinkedIn, but I mean, there's so many things to think about.
Oh, there is. I mean, it's so funny. I don't know how to use TikTok. I've had to ask my 11-year-old, and I was like, I don't really get it. But when I think about what can be put out there, right? So now I'm putting my mom hat on. I just remember telling the kids, like, you don't want to put anything out there that you don't want to come back to you. And that is very real today. So I understand, like, the influence of social media that could be used for good or for bad. And I've heard both sides of that. I think my advice, I mean, even to like young adults today, is really, I mean, your brand identity starts the day you open that account, right? And so, how you want to be perceived, perception is reality. And I think that a big part of that is, my hope is that we can educate younger folks about how you can use that, because one day, somebody's going to look back and be able to say, okay, like this, we've all heard those horror stories, right? But I really believe it can be used for good. And I had a young intern that is in high school, and she's in her senior year. She was my intern this past year, and I remember she said something so wonderful. She's like, I have an interview. She's applying to Stanford, and she said, well, I found the person who's interviewing me on LinkedIn, Helen, because you taught me how to use that, right? And I sent him a note that I am looking forward to speaking with him. And I was thinking, you know what, if I taught you nothing else, like that is a huge win. And so there's a lot of ways to use different platforms. People need to understand the audience and what is it that you're trying to portray. I don't think people answer that question, and therefore they use social in however they're viewing it, right? Which is not always the best.
Yeah, and I think restaurants, especially the smaller ones, are really big on Instagram and the larger ones are really big on Twitter. But I think a lot of them are avoiding this big LinkedIn audience. I mean, what are your recommendations for restaurants to really grab that audience who is sitting here and hungry for it?
Yeah, I don't know if LinkedIn would love that. I'd say, I wouldn't necessarily buy the posting of jobs. I mean, I think people want to see the brand. I was talking about this last night. I was at an event, and people want to work for companies with a purpose. So, today I mean, we're seeing it everywhere, right? Line cooks, $20 an hour. I mean, the labor market, there's such a huge shortage of labor. We're hearing about the great, resignation. And so I think today, there needs to be a huge differentiation around, why do I work for this brand? Like, what's the purpose? And why do I want to, like, am I proud to work for this company? And if people did a better job, I think, on LinkedIn in really their brand identity, like, why would I want to work at X company? And you see like how much fun they're having in the new store openings that they're having, or they're recognizing their people. It's a big miss if not being used. So, LinkedIn, it was kind of a by accident, because I was traveling all over the country, meeting clients, meeting candidates, and somebody's like, wow, you are always on the move, and it became Helen on the Move. And the next thing I know is people recognize me. They'll be like, are you Helen? You must be on the move. So it really is, for us anyways, for our ClearPath, the team. I have this incredibly dynamic team. We are growing, and anything we can do to be able to help these businesses, even honestly from a marketing perspective, it's become that. And I think, that's the one area, Holly, where I think like old ways of marketing versus, like, if you don't understand the power of these platforms today, you're really missing the boat.
So funny. I was going to bring up Helen on the Move. I love the hashtag.
I know it's become, and people are like, you haven't been on the move. And I said, I don't know if people really want to follow me on the move all the time, but it really has been something that's just been something really fun.
And it's a hashtag that you use across platforms. So you're not just using it on LinkedIn, you're using it on Instagram, and you're using it on Twitter. And that's really interesting how you're able to carry this identity throughout 3 separate platforms, which is, I think, something that a lot of restaurants are having trouble doing. And so can you see different impact on each platform? Are you seeing more engagement on one versus the other?
Yeah, it's really, I mean, when I started it was much more about trying to showcase brands. My whole thing is like, let me spotlight certain brands that are doing great things, or employees who have been with the company. I remember one of my very first ones, I was at Joe's Stone Crab in Miami, and I met Moses, and Moses had been there 30 years. And I was like, wow, if everybody wants to understand retention, we should be talking to Joe Stone Crab, you know? And I took a photo with Moses and I was like, hey, I'm on the move here with Moses. And from there, I mean, I was only using LinkedIn and it's where all of our clients are. Like, we've worked with, gosh, I don't know, 20 plus private equity groups and hundreds of companies, emerging and middle market brands. And so they loved it. Like they loved seeing that Helen was on the move and I'm here in this restaurant and I met this server. And from there, what I realized is, a lot of people like pick one platform or another. Like LinkedIn was our platform because that's where, we're kind of talking a lot about, hey, we place all executives at the C level and vice president. So it was a great way for them to see, oh gosh, there's all these different new brands, emerging brands popping up in Boston, Chicago, and Denver. And so it was just kind of a fun way for us to showcase and spotlight not only companies, but people. And from there, I realized, gosh, even on Instagram, I was posting things about, I've now taken things down about like my kids and all of that. And it's really become like Helen on the move. And I can tell you that it's resonated with people because they're like, hey, I want to see where you are and what's the best new restaurant. I must get asked that question more than any question is, I'm going to this market. Where should I eat? So it's been fun, if nothing else.